Elias stared out of the spaceship window, his fingers tapping nervously against the armrest. Stars streaked past like silver rain as the craft pierced the edge of the Zitharan system. He had traveled farther than any human diplomat had before, to a world he knew only from holomaps and reports. And now he was expected to marry someone he had never met, a prince of the alien species called the Lirathi. It was supposed to be simple, a political union to strengthen ties between Earth and Zithara. But nothing about this felt simple. Elias was a man of reason, trained in negotiations and diplomacy, yet his mind buzzed with anxiety. He had seen the Lirathi only on a holoscreen, a shimmering silhouette that seemed more like a painting than a real person. No human eyes could capture the way they moved, the way their emotions danced like colored light across their skin. And now he would meet one in person and marry him. The ship's intercom buzzed softly. "Arrival in 10 minutes, said a calm, mechanical voice. Elias exhaled and straightened his jacket. He had promised himself he would act confident. But inside his heart raced. The landing platform on Zithara was unlike anything he had ever imagined. It floated high above glowing rivers of blue-green light, tethered to the surface by immense golden pillars. Towering gardens floated around him, each leaf and petal glowing faintly. The sky was alive with colors shifting like ribbons of aurora. The beauty was overwhelming. Elias could not help but stop and stare. "Welcome, Ambassador Elias," said a voice behind him. He turned to see a Lirathi attendant approaching. The being's skin shimmered faintly in pink and gold, and its eyes, large, almond-shaped, and iridescent, seemed to see more than just his form. "You must be nervous," the attendant said. "It is normal. The prince awaits you. But know this, Kalen has been expecting you." Elias swallowed. I know. I'm ready." He wasn't sure if that was true. Ready for what? For a lifetime with someone who might see him as little more than a political tool? The attendant inclined their head. "Then let us proceed." They guided Elias through corridors that seemed alive, walls shifting with subtle patterns of light. Elias felt like he was walking through a dream. When they reached the palace's central hall, Elias paused. The ceiling was impossibly high, and the floor seemed to glow from within. Statues of abstract shapes lined the walls. Representations of Lirathi history, Elias guessed, though they were so alien he could not interpret a single one. And at the far end of the hall, waiting in silence, stood Kalen. The prince's form was taller than Elias expected, lean but strong. His skin shimmered in a gradient of colors that shifted with the light. The colors moved like a language, communicating moods and thoughts Elias could not yet understand. Kalen's eyes, wide and reflective, held a quiet curiosity. He did not move toward Elias immediately. He only watched. Elias took a deep breath. I am Elias," he said, "ambassador from Earth." Kalen's colors shifted subtly, blue, green, and a trace of violet. Elias had learned from reports that Lirathi could express emotions through these changes, but he had never seen it live. Was this calm, curiosity, amusement? Elias could not tell. "I know who you are," Kalen replied, his voice smooth, melodic, almost musical. "I have been waiting." Elias felt a strange warmth at the words. Despite the alien tones and colors, there was no threat, no expectation of blind obedience. Kalen's presence was careful, considered. The ceremony was simple yet elegant. They exchanged words that bound them, not in human legal terms, but in a ritual that made Elias feel both included and strangely unprepared. The Lirathi spoke, in sounds that were almost like song, their meanings flowing through vibrations and light. Elias repeated what he could, unsure if he had understood them correctly, but Kalen's color shifted softly, encouraging him. After the formalities, Kalen guided Elias through the palace gardens. The air was thick with scents Elias had never smelled, flowers that glowed, leaves that hummed faintly, water that shimmered with light. He tried to speak, to make conversation, but words seemed inadequate. The beauty of Zithra was beyond description, yet Kalen did not seem distracted. His attention was on Elias. "You are different," Kalen said finally. Elias glanced at him. The words were simple, yet they carried weight. "Different?" Elias asked. I suppose we all are. Humans, Lirathi. You mean in comparison to others?" Kalen's colors pulsed softly. "You are unpredictable, curious, brave perhaps without knowing it. Most humans I have observed are cautious, slow. You are alive in ways I did not expect." Elias blinked. He had been trained to be diplomatic, to hide his emotions. Yet Kalen seemed to see through him, and strangely, he was not afraid. Curiosity warmed him instead. They walked in silence for a while, Kalen explaining some of the garden's plants through gestures and color shifts. Elias tried to mimic, reaching out to touch a luminous vine. It recoiled slightly and he laughed. Kalen's colors flared bright green, amusement. The sound, the light, the interaction, it was simple, yet something powerful passed between them. Later, they arrived at the private quarters. Elias noticed the room was unlike anything human designed. Walls that shifted subtly, furniture that seemed to anticipate movement, light that adapted to mood. Kalen gestured to a seat, then sat himself, observing Elias as if measuring the distance between thought and action. "You must be tired," Kalen said softly. "It is a lot. Arrival, ceremony, rituals." "Yes," Elias admitted. "And yet I cannot stop thinking. About this planet, about you, about what comes next." Kalen's colors shimmered again, gentle blues and faint gold. "Next," he said, "is learning. We will learn each other, not as human and Lirathi, not as ambassador and prince, but as two beings meeting for the first time. Truly." Elias felt a rush of relief. He had feared cold duty, a mechanical marriage of politics. But here, in this room of light and shifting walls, he felt something else. Possibility, curiosity, connection. For the first time, he allowed himself to relax. Kalen did not ask him to perform or pretend. He simply existed, and Elias could exist beside him. The thought was foreign, but welcome. As the twin moons of Zithra rose outside, casting their silver light across the garden below, Elias felt a sense of anticipation he had never known. The future was unknown, yes, but for the first time, it was also full of potential. He had entered an alien world, agreed to a union he did not fully understand, yet the presence of Kalen made the unknown feel less frightening. Kalen leaned slightly forward, his eyes reflecting the silver moons. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "we begin, not with ceremony, not with words, but with seeing each other. Truly." Elias nodded, unsure how much he could comprehend, yet trusting the strange, radiant being before him. Whatever awaited them, he realized it would not be a union of convenience alone. It could become something deeper, something neither human nor Lirathi could have predicted. And for the first time since leaving Earth, Elias felt that perhaps being different, being unpredictable, was exactly what he needed. Outside, the glowing garden shimmered under the moons as if celebrating the first steps of a union that might change not just two lives, but two worlds. The morning light of Zithra filtered through translucent walls, casting a soft glow over the palace chambers. Elias awoke to a world that seemed more alive than any he had imagined. The palace itself breathed. Walls shimmered with subtle patterns, and the air was rich with scents that danced and shifted as if the house itself were awake. Kalen was already awake, sitting near the window, his skin shifting through delicate colors of blue and gold. Elias watched him quietly, fascinated by the subtle language those colors spoke. It was an entire world of expression he could barely interpret, yet he felt its meaning in the rhythm of Kalen's movements. "Good morning," Elias said, his voice a little unsteady. Kalen's lips curved slightly, and his colors flickered, like sunlight on water. "Good morning, Elias. Sleep well?" "Yes." "I think so," Elias admitted. "Though I cannot say I understand this place fully yet." Kalen tilted his head, studying him. "You do not need to understand fully. You need only to notice, to feel." Elias nodded slowly. He had been trained to analyze, to measure, to predict outcomes. Yet here, in a world of light and emotion, analysis seemed almost useless. He realized that he would need to learn something far more difficult: intuition. Breakfast was unlike anything Elias had experienced. The table was filled with foods that glowed faintly, fruits and liquids in colors he had no names for, and textures that shifted under his fingers. Kalen introduced each item, not with words, but through subtle gestures and shifts in his own colors. Elias tried to mirror the colors and gestures, laughing when he failed, and Kalen's laughter was a soft ripple of violet and green. "You are curious," Kalen said finally. Elias looked at him. "I suppose curiosity is what got me here," Elias replied, "and maybe it is what will keep me alive." Kalen's colors shifted quickly, a pattern Elias had learned to read as amusement. "Alive, yes? You are alive, Elias, in ways most humans are not. That is why I wished for this union, not for politics alone, but for the meeting of life itself." Elias paused, surprised. "You wanted me?" Kalen's gaze softened. "I wanted to see you, to know you. That is different from politics." The words, simple though they were, carried a weight that made Elias's chest tighten. For the first time since leaving Earth, he felt truly seen, not just observed. After breakfast, Kalen guided Elias through the palace corridors to meet the court. The attendants were Lirathi of all shapes and colors, moving with a grace that reminded Elias of dancers floating through air. Each being seemed to communicate without words, through subtle light shifts and vibrations in the floor. Elias realized that much of the court's life relied on understanding these unspoken languages, a skill humans rarely possessed. One attendant, a tall figure with silver-blue skin, approached Elias. "Prince Kalen," the being said, "this is Ambassador Elias. We hope he will find our customs understandable." Elias gave a small smile. "I will try my best." The attendant's colors shifted, a flicker of green and gold. Elias guessed it meant approval. As they walked through the court, Elias noticed whispers, soft shifts in color among the Lirathi. Some looked at him curiously, some skeptically. He could sense the subtle judgment, the uncertainty. Humans and Lirathi had very different ways of thinking, and he wondered how he could bridge that gap. Kalen noticed his tension and gently placed a hand on Elias's arm. The colors there pulsed softly, reassuring him. "Do not fear them," Kalen said. "They are curious as you are. Curiosity is not bad. It is learning." Elias nodded, grateful for the quiet encouragement. He realized that Kalen's understanding of human emotion went beyond what any human diplomat could teach him. The prince could sense subtle feelings even when Elias tried to hide them. The day passed in a blur of introductions and explanations. Elias learned about the Lirathi's unique communication, how colors, gestures, and vibrations combined to create nuanced meaning. It was overwhelming yet exhilarating. For every moment of confusion, there was a moment of clarity, a spark of connection with Kalen. At one point, they reached a terrace overlooking the floating gardens. Elias stood in awe, watching rivers of light flow below, gardens suspended, in midair like islands of color. Kalen's hand found his, and the gesture was simple but grounding. "You will learn, Elias," Kalen said softly, "that the world is not just what you see. It is what you feel, what you notice, what you understand beyond sight." Elias looked at him, feeling a mixture of awe and humility. "I want to learn. I want to understand." Kalen smiled faintly, his colors shifting in soft gold and blue. Then you will. Later, Kalen took him to a quiet chamber filled with holographic projections of Earth. Elias gasped. He had never seen such a detailed, living representation of his home planet outside of data streams. Forests swayed in the projections, cities glimmered with light, oceans shimmered as if alive. I have studied your world, Kalen said, his voice almost reverent. I wanted to understand you. Your history, your art, your life. Humans are remarkable. I could not ignore that. Elias felt a rush of emotion. The prince, whom he had feared would see him only as a tool or symbol, had gone to the effort of understanding his entire species. You studied humans? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. Kalen's colors pulsed warmly. Yes, I wanted to know who you are, not just as a diplomat, but as a person. That is why this union is more than politics. It is curiosity meeting life. It is understanding meeting hope. Elias's heart ached with gratitude. For the first time, he felt a bridge forming between him and Kalen, one built not on duty or fear, but on shared curiosity and respect. As the day turned to evening, Kalen led him to a quiet garden terrace. The floating gardens glowed under Zithara's twin moons, light reflecting in pools of silver and green. The air was fragrant, alive with the hum of unseen creatures. Elias realized that he had never felt more alive, more aware of each sense, each breath, each subtle shift in the world around him. You will find, Kalen said softly, that being here changes you. The world is not meant to be measured, Elias. It is meant to be experienced. Elias nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. And you? He asked. Do you feel the same? Kalen's colors flared gently, soft violet, deep gold, hints of blue. Yes, you are. Unlike anyone I have known. You see differently, yet you notice the same things. That is rare. Elias felt a thrill at the words. He realized that this union, this marriage that he had once feared, was becoming something else. Something that neither he nor Kalen could have predicted. A meeting of worlds, not just of two individuals, but of understanding, curiosity, and connection. That night, as they walked back to the palace, Elias felt a sense of wonder he had not experienced in years. Kalen spoke little, letting the silence speak for itself, and Elias found that he did not mind. The silence was filled with unspoken words, colors, and feelings. He realized that sometimes understanding came not from speaking, but from noticing, from being present. Before retiring for the night, Kalen stopped at the doorway to Elias's chamber. Tomorrow, he said softly, we begin again. You will see more, feel more, and perhaps understand more than you expect. Elias nodded, feeling anticipation and curiosity intertwine. The unknown no longer seemed frightening. Instead, it was an invitation, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to connect with someone utterly alien, yet surprisingly familiar in his care and curiosity. As he lay in the soft glow of the chamber, Elias thought of Earth, of home, and of the journey that had brought him here. But more than anything, he thought of Kalen, the prince who had welcomed him not just to a planet, but to a new way of seeing life. The day of the wedding arrived with a sky painted in Zithara's brilliant colors. Twin suns hung low, casting a warm glow over the floating gardens, while the palace shimmered in anticipation. Elias felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. He had learned much about Kalen, the prince and the Larathi world in the past days, yet the thought of the coming ceremony made his chest tighten. The wedding hall was beyond imagination. It hovered over one of the largest floating gardens, transparent floors allowing views of cascading rivers of light below. Intricate lights floated mid-air, each a tiny prism reflecting the colors of the sky. Larathi attendants moved gracefully around the hall, their skin colors shifting like living rainbows, sending subtle messages to one another. Elias adjusted his formal attire, a human suit designed to blend subtly with Lirathi ceremonial norms. Kalen stood nearby, his skin shimmering, in soft golds and greens, calm and majestic. There was no haughtiness in him, only a quiet focus that seemed to ground Elias even as he felt overwhelmed by the grandeur around them. The ceremony began with music, not human music, but a melodic vibration that filled the air, resonating in the floor and walls. Words were spoken in the Lirathi tongue, accompanied by flashes of light across Kalen's skin, an ancient ritual that bound two beings together. Elias followed the gestures, repeating the words as best he could, feeling their meanings more than understanding them fully. As the ceremony concluded, Elias felt a strange exhilaration. The ritual was beautiful, unlike any human wedding, yet he had survived it. More importantly, he felt a connection to Kalen that went beyond ceremony. Kalen's colors pulsed gently, reassuring him. Later, when the guests had dispersed, Kalen took Elias's hand. "Come," he said softly, leading him down a quiet corridor that glowed with subtle hues of blue and silver. Elias followed, curiosity pushing aside any lingering nerves. They reached a door at the end of the hall, simple yet elegant. Kalen touched it lightly, and it slid open to reveal a room Elias would never forget. It was filled with holographic projections, floating in the air like stars in a night sky. As Elias stepped forward, he realized that the images were of Earth. Forests swaying, oceans shimmering, cities glowing at night, humans walking through streets, laughing, living. Elias gasped. He had seen simulations before, but never like this. Every detail was vivid, alive, and breathtaking. Kalen's voice was soft. "I wanted you to feel at home, Elias, to see your world as I see it." You did this?" Elias whispered, moving closer to the projections. He reached out to touch a holographic tree, half expecting it to vanish. Instead, it shifted gently under his fingers, like the tree itself was breathing. Kalen stepped closer, his colors glowing warmly. "I studied your planet for many years. Your people, your creativity, your curiosity, your resilience, it fascinated me. I wanted to understand you before we joined our lives, not just as a diplomat, but as a man and as a human." Elias felt a rush of emotion he had never expected. The prince he had feared would see him as a political tool had gone to the effort of understanding humanity itself. Every detail of the holograms, every sound, every subtle motion, it was Kalen's way of saying he cared even before words. I don't know what to say," Elias murmured, his voice catching. This is incredible. I never expected." Kalen's skin shimmered with gentle blues and golds. "You should not expect, you should experience. That is the only way to truly understand." Elias stepped closer, almost afraid to touch the holograms too much, as if they might disappear. But Kalen encouraged him with a soft gesture. "Do not fear, Elias. This is for you, and for us." They walked among the holograms, exploring cities and landscapes together. Elias laughed as he moved through a projection of a crowded human street, recognizing familiar sights from Earth. Kalen watched him, his colors pulsing in subtle shades of joy and curiosity. It was not a cold observation, it was warmth, attention, and genuine interest. "You notice things differently," Kalen said softly, watching Elias interact with the holograms. "Humans see details I miss. You feel them. That is why I wished for this union. We balance each other." Elias smiled, a warmth spreading in his chest. "And I thought you might just be curious about politics." Kalen's colors flickered with amusement. "Politics is boring. Understanding life and the life of someone you care about, that is worth more than any treaty." The night passed in quiet wonder. Kalen shared stories about the Lirathi world, its floating gardens, its traditions, its ancient history. In turn, Elias described humans, their arts, their dreams, their humor. They laughed, sharing small jokes, discovering similarities in how curiosity and wonder shaped both species. At one point, Kalen stopped beside a projection of a human ocean. The water shimmered like liquid glass, waves rising and falling in perfect harmony. He turned to Elias. I wanted you to know that I see you, not as a human, not as an ambassador, not as a partner in politics, but as a person, entire, full of life, full of curiosity. Elias's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to him like that. No one had ever looked at him with such care and attention. He reached out, touching Kalen's hand. The colors there pulsed softly, reassuring, gentle, warm. I feel the same, Elias said. I never expected to find this. Kalen's gaze softened. Nor did I, but it is here, between us, not forced, not demanded, simply found. They sat among the holograms, letting the night and projections surround them. Elias realized that the blindness of their marriage, the lack of expectation, the uncertainty, was not a barrier. It was a gift. They were learning each other slowly, carefully, and with curiosity, without assumptions. Hours passed, and the palace grew quiet. Outside, the twin moons of Zithra cast silver and green light across the floating gardens. Elias felt a peace he had not known in years. This was not a marriage built on duty alone. This was a meeting of minds, of hearts, of curiosity and understanding. Kalen finally spoke again, his voice soft and almost hesitant. Tomorrow, we will continue learning, not as prince and ambassador, but as two beings discovering each other. Do you wish to continue? Elias nodded, feeling a thrill of anticipation. Yes, I want to see more, learn more, with you. Kalen's colors shifted warmly, the violet and gold blending into soft green. Then we will. Together. For the first time, Elias realized that this union, this marriage he had feared, was becoming something extraordinary. He had entered the palace as a human ambassador, unsure and wary, and yet now he felt at home. Not because of the palace, not because of the ceremony, but because of Kalen. The night wound down, the holograms dimming to soft glows, and Kalen led Elias to the chamber that would be his home during his stay. They did not speak as they prepared to rest. Words were unnecessary. The unspoken understanding between them was enough. Elias lay in the soft light, his mind alive with images of Earth, Zithra, and the shimmering colors of Kalen's skin. He realized that what he had found on their wedding night was not merely a display of holographic beauty or alien technology. It was the heart of Kalen himself, a bridge across worlds, a gift of trust and understanding. And as sleep claimed him, Elias knew that the journey ahead would be full of wonder, learning, and discovery. He had found not just a partner, but a guide, a friend, and perhaps even something deeper, a connection that could not be measured by tradition, politics, or expectation. The wedding night had revealed the impossible, that even in a world so alien amidst rituals and unfamiliar beauty, two beings could find understanding, curiosity, and the spark of life itself. The morning after their wedding night, Elias awoke to the soft glow of Zithra's twin suns. The palace was alive in ways he had never experienced. Walls shimmered with patterns that changed according to the light, and the air was filled with a gentle hum that seemed to come from the very structure itself. Elias stretched, feeling anticipation and curiosity intertwine. Today, Kalen had promised, they would begin their journey of understanding each other fully. Kalen was already waiting by the balcony, his skin radiating soft gold and gentle green. Elias approached, and Kalen extended a hand. Good morning, Elias. Are you ready to begin? I am, Elias said, taking the prince's hand. I want to learn, and perhaps teach a little too. Kalen's colors flared in amusement. We will do both, that is the way of learning. They started with a walk through the palace gardens. The floating plants glowed faintly as they passed, responding to touch and presence. Elias marveled at each detail, the way vines twisted in the air, the subtle color shifts in petals, the soft hum of leaves as they moved. It was a world alive in ways he had never imagined. You noticed details quickly, Kalen observed. Most humans are too slow to see the subtleties. Elias smiled. I suppose I have to be careful. Otherwise, I might miss something important. Kalen's colors shifted, soft violet and green, a flicker of laughter. Careful, yes, but do not forget to feel. Seeing is more than observing, it is understanding. Elias nodded, realizing that Kalen's way of life was almost entirely built on perception beyond the senses humans relied on. Every gesture, every color shift, every hum carried meaning. To live here, Elias would have to learn to see differently. They reached a terrace overlooking the main city of Zithera. The floating garden stretched endlessly, rivers of light winding between islands of vegetation. Larathi citizens moved gracefully along aerial pathways, their skin colors communicating subtle emotions. Children played by creating small, floating lights that hovered like fireflies, laughing in soft tones that blended music and speech. Kalen gestured to the scene. This is our world, Elias. To understand it, you must not just look, but feel its rhythm. Watch how life flows, how balance is maintained. Elias focused on the citizens, observing interactions. At first, the colors were confusing. Too many shifts, too many layers. But gradually he began to understand subtle cues. A flicker of green meant amusement. A gentle blue indicated calm. A tiny pulse of violet showed curiosity. Slowly, he could read some of the language without words. You are learning quickly, Kalen said, glancing at him. I did not expect you to notice so much so soon. Elias shrugged. I have a good teacher. The prince's colors softened into a warm gold. I am glad. But it is not only about learning my world. You must teach me yours. Humans see differently. You notice the chaos, the beauty, the humor. That is a skill I wish to learn. Elias thought of Earth, the noise of the cities, the laughter of children, the way sunlight could hit a tree and create endless patterns. I will try, he said, though I am not sure you can understand the full human world in a day. Kalen's skin pulsed in amusement. Perhaps not, but understanding does not always need time. It needs attention, presence, and curiosity. You have all three. As the day went on, Elias taught Kalen small human habits. They laughed over simple games like mimicking gestures, creating small patterns on the ground, and playing with floating lights. Kalen was clumsy at first, his elongated limbs struggling with human movements, but he quickly adapted. Learning with a patience and precision Elias admired. You are patient, Elias noted, smiling at Kalen's attempts to balance a floating orb of light in his hand. Kalen's colors shifted warmly. Patience is necessary for understanding, and curiosity drives learning. You humans seem to have endless curiosity, Elias laughed. We do, though sometimes it leads to trouble. Trouble is part of growth, Kalen said. To learn, one must risk being wrong. In the afternoon, they visited the palace archives, a room filled with floating holographic records of Larathi history. Elias marveled at the precision of the knowledge, the depth of memory preserved through light and vibration. Kalen explained stories not just through words, but through colors and gestures, showing Elias battles, celebrations, and discoveries. Elias listened, fascinated. Your people value history differently from humans. We record, but sometimes we forget. You preserve it in life itself. Kalen's skin pulsed softly. Memory is alive. It grows. It changes. But it is not lost. Humans have curiosity and resilience. Those are strengths I admire. Elias realized that Kalen had not only prepared for this union politically, but had studied human nature deeply. The prince's respect and understanding went far beyond formality. As evening approached, Kalen led Elias to a quiet terrace overlooking a glowing river of light. There is something I wish to show you, he said softly. Curiosity tingled in Elias's chest. What is it? Kalen's skin shifted in gentle gold and blue. Something small, yet meaningful. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small crystal glowing faintly. He held it toward Elias. "This crystal records emotions," he explained. "It is simple, yet it can capture a moment. I wish for you to feel it." Elias took the crystal hesitantly. The moment he touched it, a warmth spread through him. He saw flashes of his own emotions, curiosity, nervousness, excitement, intertwined with Kalen's colors of patience, attention, and gentle amusement. The crystal glowed brighter, reflecting their shared connection. It shows how we feel together?" Elias asked, awestruck. Kalen nodded. "Yes. It is a small bridge between worlds, a way to understand without words, without ceremony, just feeling, shared." Elias held the crystal close. He realized that this union, the marriage he had once feared, was not about duty alone. It was about understanding, curiosity, and the willingness to see beyond surface differences. They stayed there, watching the glowing river, holding the crystal between them. Elias felt a depth of connection he had never known. Kalen's presence was grounding yet inspiring. He was not a symbol of duty. He was a partner in discovery, a companion in learning, and a teacher of seeing life differently. As night fell, the palace glowed softly. Elias realized that he had learned more about life in Zithera in a single day than he could have imagined. But the greatest lesson was clear. Understanding and connection were built not through ceremony or obligation, but through attention, curiosity, and shared experience. Kalen finally spoke as they walked back to their chambers. "Tomorrow we will continue. There is much more to show, much more to experience. But for now, rest. You have learned much today, and tomorrow we explore not just the world, but each other more deeply." Elias nodded. "I look forward to it. I feel more alive here than I have in years." Kalen's colors shifted warmly, a soft mix of violet and gold. "And that is only the beginning, Elias. Our journey has just begun." That night Elias lay awake, reflecting on the day. He had entered this union expecting protocol and perhaps discomfort, but he found wonder, curiosity, and a growing bond with Kalen. He realized that the prince's fascination with humans was more than academic. It was genuine. And Elias's own fascination with Zithera, with Kalen, and with the possibilities of understanding was equally real. In the soft glow of the chamber, Elias felt a quiet certainty. The blind marriage he had once feared was no longer a duty. It was an adventure, a journey into discovery, empathy, and life itself. And as he drifted to sleep, he looked forward to tomorrow, knowing that the world, Kalen, and even himself would continue to surprise him in ways he had never imagined. For Elias, the union was no longer about politics or expectation. It was about learning to see beyond, to understand, to feel, and to connect. And that was a journey worth embracing fully. The day of the diplomatic gathering arrived with a calm that belied the tension under the floating gardens. Elias felt a quiet nervousness, not for the ceremony or the protocols, but for the chance to represent humanity alongside Kalen. It was one thing to explore Zithera privately, to share laughter and curiosity in the palace gardens. It was another to step into the spotlight, where humans and Lyrathi alike would scrutinize him. Kalen stood at his side, calm and steady, his skin glowing in soft gold and green. "Do not worry," the prince said. "You have learned, and you have grown. Today you do not speak alone, we speak together." Elias nodded, feeling the warmth of Kalen's confidence. He realized that he had come a long way. From a man uncertain and anxious to someone capable of facing not only a foreign court, but also the weight of expectation. The palace halls were filled with delegates from across the Lyrathi world and a few humans accompanying Elias. The floating lights shimmered, reflecting colors of the court's emotions. Elias noticed curiosity, skepticism, and cautious respect in equal measure. He felt their stares, the subtle vibrations of judgment in the floor beneath him, and yet he held Kalen's hand, grounding himself in the bond they had built. When they Arrived at the central platform, Kalen spoke first. His voice, melodic and gentle, echoed across the hall. Honored guests, friends of Zithra and humans of Earth, today we celebrate not only a union between two beings, but a union of understanding, curiosity, and shared life. Elias felt the weight of Kalen's words. He stepped forward, his voice clear and steady. I come from a world of diversity, curiosity, and learning. Today I stand not only as a representative of Earth, but as someone who has discovered the beauty of a world unlike my own. Kalen has shown me how to see, feel, and understand beyond what is visible. Together, we bridge worlds. There was a pause, a collective shift in the room as delegates processed his words. The air vibrated with subtle color changes, green of approval, blue of calm, flickers of curiosity. Elias realized that he was being understood, not just heard. Kalen smiled softly at him, his colors shifting in gentle golds and violets. You see, he whispered. You are more than you realize. Elias nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. Together they shared stories of their joint experiences, how humans and Lirathi could teach each other, learn from each other, and create understanding through curiosity and empathy. Delegates leaned in, captivated by the simplicity and sincerity of their words. After the speeches, Kalen led Elias to the floating gardens. The air was alive with subtle vibrations, and the colors of the flora shimmered in response to their presence. I wish to show them, Kalen said, that what we share is more than ceremony. It is experience, understanding, and life itself. Elias looked around, mesmerized by the gardens and the subtle way life responded to presence. You've thought of everything, he said softly. Even the smallest details speak of connection. Kalen's colors flickered, a soft green and violet. Connection is not in grand gestures alone, it is in noticing, in presence, in the quiet moments that build trust. Elias felt a rush of gratitude. He realized that their union was a living example of what humans and Lirathi could achieve together, not through politics, not through obligation, but through curiosity, attention, and respect. Over the following days, they continued exploring Zithra together, now with a growing sense of unity. Elias introduced Kalen to human games, humor, and storytelling. Kalen taught Elias the subtle language of colors, vibrations, and gestures that conveyed the depth of Lirathi emotion. They laughed, stumbled, and celebrated small discoveries, learning to navigate differences with patience and joy. One afternoon, they visited a school where Lirathi children were learning alongside human students. Elias watched as Kalen's presence inspired curiosity and trust. The children asked questions, not afraid to mix languages and gestures, to combine human creativity with Lirathi expression. Elias realized that this was the true legacy of their union, a living bridge between species, teaching future generations the power of understanding. In the evening, Elias and Kalen returned to the palace terrace. The twin moons cast silver light over the floating gardens. Elias held the crystal Kalen had given him on their first night, now glowing faintly with the shared emotions of the past days. You have changed me, Elias said softly, not just through learning your world, but through showing me how to live fully, notice deeply, and connect without fear. Kalen's colors pulsed warmly, gentle golds and blues intertwining. And you have changed me, Elias. You have shown me that humans see life differently, that curiosity and resilience are as important as precision and patience. We are stronger together. Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. I never expected this marriage to be what it has become. I thought it would be a duty, but it is so much more. It is learning, friendship, and connection. Kalen reached for his hand. It is life itself, Elias. Life shared. Weeks passed, and the initial scrutiny of the human-Lirathi union faded into admiration. Delegates and citizens alike began to see Elias and Kalen not as a political arrangement, but as a living example of mutual respect and curiosity. The couple's shared experiences became a story told across Scythera, a reminder that understanding and empathy could cross even the most alien divides. Elias continued to explore the planet with Kaelin, finding beauty in the smallest details. He learned to read subtle shifts in colors, to interpret vibrations in the floor, and to sense the emotions of those around him. Kaelin, in turn, learned human humor, storytelling, and the power of simple gestures. Together, they built a language of connection that was both human and Lyrathi, something entirely new and entirely theirs. One evening, as they watched the glowing rivers from a high balcony, Elias reflected on their journey. He had arrived on Scythera as a nervous ambassador, uncertain and wary of the unknown. Now he felt a deep sense of belonging. He belonged not only to Kaelin, but to the world they were shaping together. Kaelin's hand found his, their fingers intertwined. "You see," Kaelin said softly, "it was never about obligation. It was about discovering life and discovering each other." Elias smiled, feeling warmth flood through him. "I see it now, and I am grateful for your patience, your curiosity, and your willingness to understand." Kaelin's skin glowed softly in response. "And I am grateful for you, Elias, for your humanity, your curiosity, your willingness to step beyond fear and expectation." They stood together in silence, watching the twin moons rise higher. Elias realized that the wedding night revelation, Kaelin's immersive holographic gift, the subtle lessons in patience and attention, had been only the beginning. Their journey was ongoing, a living testament to the power of curiosity, understanding, and mutual respect. In that moment, Elias understood something profound. The marriage had never been about sight, ceremony, or politics. It had been about learning to truly see, to understand, and to connect. It had been about discovering life in a way neither human nor Lyrathi had experienced before. As the moons reflected in their eyes, Elias felt a certainty he had never known. Together, he and Kaelin could face any challenge, not because they were perfect, but because they had learned to trust, to understand, and to grow together. The palace around them shimmered in quiet celebration, a world alive in light, color, and vibration. Elias felt the pulse of life, not just in Scythera, but within himself. He had arrived uncertain and cautious, yet he now embraced the future with hope, curiosity, and joy. Kaelin squeezed his hand gently. "Shall we return?" he asked, colors glowing softly in calm gold. Elias nodded, smiling. "Yes, together." And as they walked back into the palace, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The blind marriage had become a journey of discovery, a testament to the power of curiosity, empathy, and connection. They had not only found each other, but a new way of seeing life, a shared understanding that would guide them and perhaps all who came after toward a future built not on obligation, but on trust, wonder, and the courage to see beyond the familiar. The journey of Elias and Kaelin was complete in its beginning. They had crossed worlds, bridged species, and discovered the extraordinary in the ordinary. And as the twin moons shone above, their colors reflecting in Elias's eyes, he realized that the greatest discovery of all had been the heart of life itself, shared fully and freely between two beings willing to understand and be understood.